You saw what just happened. They knocked out my internet, man. All of it. Not just the stream. Damn. I'm just waiting for the room to fill up again. Damn, I must have pissed someone off. So, anyway, like I was saying, that's a shame, man. YouTube just kind of like immediately ended the stream for some reason, but because sometimes it lets you reconnect. But I don't know. I hope all of you find it again and rejoin. But yeah, I must have pissed someone off, man. That's weird. Anyway, we're here. So just give me a second. I'm just waiting for you guys to come back in the room before I continue. I'm just going to see if you guys left any more comments. I can read them to you in the meantime while we're waiting. Yeah, I'm again, the internet is kind of messed up, so I don't know what's going on. But anyway. I see James says shoes all around. Absolutely, we should be throwing them shoes, man. That's the only way to deal with this crap. Gotta throw the shoes. Yalla, yalla. So, again, I'm just waiting for the room to fill up. Rob says the CIA is trying to stop you, Rich. I know, and thank you for the tip. I appreciate it. I know they're trying to stop me. They knocked out my internet. It's all gone. There's no internet. That sucks, you know? That sucks. Because they SF Thomas says it's the 8200 flexing their muscle. So for those of you who may not know, the 8200 is a tech unit in the Mossad. No, let me rephrase that. They specialize in cyber warfare, and they're part of the Israeli military, not the Mossad. But a lot of them go on to work in, they make companies like NSO Group and so on. Anyway, probably flexing their muscle. Who knows, man? But yeah, it's really this is what, I don't know if they're wasting their time with me, but I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, try to go after everyone, man. Who knows? Maybe it's just a tech thing, but internet's still not back, so I don't know what's going on. In any case, I'm right here, so thank you guys for tuning back in. It sucks, though, because, you might have like a couple hundred people tuned in, and then they knock out the stream, or it gets knocked out by itself, and then you got to wait till it repopulates. But hopefully people will be back. It's okay. We got this. So I just wanted to continue what I was saying. I'll just, we still got a lot more segments, and if you have questions, go ahead. You can send them over. No worries. So I wanted to finish up by saying that this is how the country was built. People should be under no illusions, right? This is colonialism. This is a settler colony. The whole idea is that you have people coming from all over the world and taking the homes of Palestinians. That's the only way it works. How do you think it works? It's like that video I made. I said that Zionism depends on ethnically cleansing Palestinians. And this is a textbook definition of ethnic cleansing. When you forcibly remove a native population and replace it with your own or with another, right? So this is, these forced transfers of population. It's not just about one neighborhood, and that is bad enough. But they've done this all over, okay? And it's so important for people to remember that they have no jurisdiction there. I mean, I don't care what they rule. Even hypothetically, let's say that the Supreme Court, this kangaroo court, decides that the Palestinian families can stay in Sheikh Jarrah. Great, but who the hell asked you? Like, it's not your place. You have no, you have no jurisdiction here. You have no authority here to be deciding who can stay in their own fucking home. How generous of you. Who the hell are you? Like, the audacity of this. And once again, keep in mind, these people have like 2 homes. Usually they have 2 citizenships. It's unreal. So they want to leave Palestinians with nothing, Syrians with nothing. Syrians, they're occupying the Golan Heights. This is a huge gem in the Middle East and the Levant. It has oil, it has water, even snow, and it's extremely important military plateau. So, they've taken that as well. So when they come and they bomb Syrians every week and they attack Syria, at one point, someone in the Mossad, his name is Eli Cohen, he infiltrated the Syrian government and he almost became the fucking defense minister. So, when we talk about being under threat, under attack, it's not a joke. It's not a joke. This impedes the development of Syria, of Lebanon, of Palestine. Palestinians are not even given a state, and that's not just Israelis to blame. It's a worldwide thing. But do you see what I'm saying? You must understand that this behavior, it not just affects Palestinians, even though it affects them the worst, but it affects the surrounding countries as well. Even Iran. Iran is not even left in peace because of Israel. And we're about to get into that in a second too. I think I got too many topics about Israel in one stream. So anyway, you'll just give me a second. Give me a second. I just need to go back on Rockfin because the stream on Rockfin got cut off as well for some reason. So I need to restart it, just like I did on YouTube. Give me 1 second, and then we'll get to it. We'll get going. All right. So again, thank you to everyone who's watching on Rockfin. There's so many people joining there, man. It's incredible. Like I think Max Blumenthal got his own channel now. It's good. It's good. This is good stuff. Seeing the membership grow plentiful. Yes? So we're live on Rockfin again. Go ahead and join there. If you have any questions, if you have any kind words, go ahead and shoot. You can scan these QR codes with your phone. Thank you so much for supporting, independent, anti-imperialist journalism. This is all possible thanks to you. I really, really appreciate it. I'm very grateful. So, yeah, we hit 400 patrons recently, which is also great. So thank you very much for that. And, this is all thanks to you. So let's move on to our next segment in any case. I'm trying to sneak a sip of water before I change back to the screen. Okay, thank God. It disconnected for another second. I was like, oh my God. No. We're going to keep going. Bruh. Bruh. So. Putain, c'est chaud. Hein. C'est chaud tout ça. C'est chaud tout ça. All right. So, you may have heard in the news about an Israeli-owned tanker that was attacked in the Oman Sea. So what's happening? Let's break it down. Basically, this is a commercial tanker, okay? And it's owned by an Israeli, even though it's registered as part of a British enterprise. And 2 people were killed. So a Romanian and a British citizen. Now, the United States, the United Kingdom, the Israelis, they've all come out and strongly condemned this, and they've blamed Iran. So they've blamed Iran, and I want to play you what they've said. This is Secretary of State Blinken.
I want to condemn again the attack on Friday against the commercial ship the Mercer Street, which was peacefully transiting through the North Arabian Sea in international waters when it was targeted by a drone laden with explosives, killing 2 people. We've conducted a thorough review, and we're confident that Iran carried out this attack. It follows a pattern of similar attacks by Iran, including past incidents with explosive drones. There is no justification for this attack on a peaceful vessel, on a commercial mission, in international waters. Iran's action is a direct threat to freedom of navigation and commerce. It took the lives of innocent sailors. We're currently coordinating with our partners and consulting with governments in the region. And we join others around the world in sending our deepest condolences to the families of the British and Romanian crew members who were killed.
Okay, now let me show you what the UK said. Okay. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, he said Iran must face up to the consequences of its actions. Okay, after its attack on the Mercer Street. Mercer Street is just the name of the vessel, name of the ship. Okay? So
I think that Iran should face up to the consequences of what they've done, accept that the attribution that the Foreign Secretary has made, this was clearly an unacceptable and outrageous attack on commercial shipping. A UK national died. It is absolutely vital that Iran and every other country respects the freedoms of navigation around the world, and the UK will continue to insist on that.
okay, and now I'm gonna play you the head of the occupation who replaced Netanyahu. So Naftali Bennett. Take a look at what he had to say.
בדרכים שלנו. בימים האחרונים העולם קיבל עוד תזכורת לתוקפנות האיראנית, הפעם בלב ים. האיראנים שתקפו בכלי טייס בלתי מאוישים את הספינה מרסר סטריט כיוונו לפגוע במטרה ישראלית. במקום זה המעשה הפיראטי שלהם הביא למותם של אזרח בריטי ואזרח רומני. אני שולח מכאן לבריטניה ולרומניה את השתתפותנו בצערן וכמובן למשפחות הנפגעים. שמעתי עכשיו שאיראן באופן פחדני מנסה להתחמק מאחריותה לאירוע. הם מתכחשים לזה. אז אני קובע באופן מוחלט, איראן היא שביצעה את התקיפה כנגד הספינה. ההתנהלות הבריונית של איראן מסוכנת לא רק לישראל, אלא פוגעת באינטרסים גלובליים, בחופש השיט ובסחר הבינלאומי. הראיות המודיעיניות לכך קיימות, ואנחנו מצפים שהמערכת הבינלאומית תבהיר למשטר האיראני שהם עשו טעות קשה. אנחנו, בכל מקרה, יודעים להעביר את המסר לאיראן בדרכים שלנו.
Oh, you see the way he said that? He's like looking into the camera, sending a threat. It's interesting though, there's some words in Hebrew that I understand because they're the same in Arabic, right? So we say ship is safine, and I think he said it's sfina. Yeah, it's similar, right? Again, they're both Semitic languages, but as you can see, they're all saying it was Iran. I'm dying to see the proof. But maybe, maybe that's not too far-fetched. I mean, you have to put this into context because if you turn on the television and you listen to the news about this story, you would think that this ship was just peacefully sailing, and then all of a sudden, for no reason, just out of the blue, Iran attacked it with an unmanned drone, by the way, right? So this is more like a kamikaze drone, they're also calling it. Unmanned aerial vehicle, just strapped with a bunch of explosives, explodes on impact. It's kind of like a V1 Doodlebug like the Germans had, right? But albeit a more modern version, obviously, but same principle. Now, the problem with this narrative that, oh, Iran just decided to attack this vessel for no reason. And I want to see the proof, because they keep saying it's Iran. They accuse Iran of having nuclear weapons, which is also that's a way, way bigger allegation. And we know that's bullshit. So I just want to add some context, because my issue here, and I think the issue of anyone who's reasonably looking at this, is that where's the proof? And second of all, when Israel was doing the exact same thing, why did they say nothing? This is from the Wall Street Journal just a few months ago in spring. Israeli strikes target Iranian oil bound for Syria. This is from March. Quote, Israel has targeted at least a dozen vessels bound for Syria and mostly carrying Iranian oil out of concern that petroleum profits are funding extremism in the Middle East. U.S. and regional officials say. So, this is very funny. Apparently, to them, extremism is just existing, right? Because Syria is under these crippling Caesar Act sanctions that Trump imposed. And even before that, even during the Obama years, you had things that Syria could not import anymore or could not get because of sanctions, right? They don't just target industries, they target the financial and trading operations, so that, there's a shortage of foreign currencies. The foreign currency, you just, I mean, it's not just about foreign currency. The banks themselves, no one wants to deal with them. You can't move anything around. It's impossible to import things and export things and so on. And one of the things is heating oil. So you had people who were going, they were freezing in the winter. And this is during the Obama years already, not just Trump and Biden. So when Iran is sending oil to Syria, the Americans are stealing Syria's oil, so it doesn't have any right now. Or when Iran is sending fuel to Venezuela, Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. It can't refine them. Why? Because its infrastructure has been decimated by, you guessed it, U.S. sanctions. So you see how the United States goes and targets countries that are self-sufficient or rich in a certain resource, and they make sure they can't export it. They do the same thing with Iran. Iran has very large oil reserves, right? What do? They target the oil sector. So Iran can't offload any of the oil. It can't sell the oil and make money and, finance public infrastructure and so on. So they look at what does this country have to sell? Let's go and fuck that industry. Let's make sure no one can buy from it. They can't export it. They can't deal with any financial services. We're going to screw them. And then, of course, what does that mean? You have no money for hospitals. You have no money for roads, for schools, for food. This is what sanctions do, right? It's siege warfare. It kills people. And so Iran, even though Iran is under sanctions itself, it still goes and helps Venezuela. It still goes and helps Syria. And they're just sending oil. They're sending fuel because Syria is in need of everything. It's in need of everything. Even toothpaste is banned because of sanctions because it's dual use. So, yeah, that's true. So, you may remember I spoke with the UN Special Rapporteur on sanctions on Press TV, and we talked about that. So, Iran is sending aid to Syria. That's the bottom line. And the Israelis, they come and destroy these ships, dozens of them. Dozens, not just one, dozens. I don't remember Secretary Blinken, Boris Johnson, Dominic Raab. I don't remember any Israelis crying about that. I don't remember any of that at all. Do you? It was barely reported in the media. This Wall Street Journal article is just one article, but you don't hear much about it. You only hear about it when it's something that portrays Israel as a victim, right? And just to provide further context, and this is, I point to a brilliant article in Press TV by my good friend Elijah Manier, really one of the best on the Middle East, and let's go through it a bit, okay? So Elijah, he talks about, just the title is, Will Israel Stop Playing and Breaking Its Teeth in the Axis of Resistance Playground, right? So, again, the oil tanker called the Mercer Street, it's a Liberian-flagged Japanese-owned ship that is part of the Zodiac group of Israeli billionaire Eyal Ofer, sailing from Tanzania towards the United Arab Emirates. Okay? The first attack on the tanker caused only material damage, but was followed by a second attack where the command and control tower was hit to cause human casualties, right? So this is the Briton and the Romanian. Al-Alam TV said the attack responded to an Israeli attack on Al-Daba airport in Syria when Iranian and Lebanese Hezbollah were killed and wounded. And when is that? When is that? That's just about a week ago, right? So this is an article you can see in Reuters. They also mentioned this. And this, to my knowledge, was about a week ago. It's the end of July. So you didn't hear anything about that, right? You didn't hear anything about that. Therefore, I continue the article. Therefore, the Israeli attack represents a change of the rule of engagement, violating the limit of acceptance in the ongoing conflict and pushing Iran to, quote-unquote, start a campaign between wars, expected to increase in intensity in the future. What is shocking to Israel is that for the first time, Iran showed how linked all theaters are and how an Israeli hit is met with an unexpected response in the Oman Sea. Israel had carried out over 1,000 strikes against targets in Syria during the decade of war against the Syrian army and targets belonging to the axis of resistance. You know this because I talk about this every time it happens, right? Every single week, practically, Israel is bombing Syria. And what do they claim they're bombing? Iranian-backed militias. They're bombing Hezbollah, like as if that gives them the right. Is it okay for the Syrian Air Force to go and bomb someone in, I don't know, like Zimbabwe because they don't like their guests there or whatever allies are in Zimbabwe? Like, what kind of logic is this? Well, apparently for the Israelis, it is okay. The rest of the world thinks it's okay. So Israel goes and violates Syria's airspace and Lebanese airspace, so, to the point Lebanon complained to the UN. And they do this every week, and they go into Syria and they bomb Syria and they say, we're attacking Iranian targets. Yeah, but who gave you the fucking right to attack Iranian targets? It's none of your business who's in Syria. And nonetheless, there's never any mention in the media. There's no outcry from all of these distinguished politicians and foreign dignitaries in the US and UK. Nothing, not a word. Didn't give a shit. But when an Israeli-owned ship gets it, now it's a problem. Right? However, Israel's only objective result was to enlarge the to enlarge the influence of the axis of resistance in the Levant. That won the destructive war and defeated the Takfiri groups, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, and the different Syrian groups supported by Persian Gulf and Western countries, right? So we're talking about all the various terrorist groups. Now, the axis of resistance enlarged and consolidated its influence on Iraq and Yemen, forming a robust front against Israel and its allies. This is very true, right? So Syria didn't lose the war. It ended up being stronger along with Yemen and so on. And this is very important because Israel tried operating in the Iraqi theater. They sent also suicide drones into Lebanon, into the Lebanese capital in Beirut, right? One exploded close to Hezbollah's office, and another was found intact. And this is something that they do all the time, right? So they'll go into like Jeramana, which is a suburb in Damascus, which is like, it's so densely populated, and they don't care if they destroy an entire residential building with people inside of it just to get one person. They do the same thing in Beirut. You know, they're terrorists. They think that because they don't like someone in another country, that this gives them the right to go and just fucking drop bombs on another country. This is terrorism. And they do this almost weekly in the case of Syria and also often in Lebanon, right? In the last 2.5 years, Israel claims to have carried out several dozen attacks against Iranian targets. Yes. And the war of sabotage between Iran and Israel is no longer a secret. Both sides admit their respective responsibility for the attacks inflicted on one another in the traditional manner through media leaks. Okay? Netanyahu explicitly broke the Israeli practice of deniability and revealed the responsibility of Israel in many sabotage attacks and unlawful assassinations against Iranian scientists and institutions. And this, again, we've talked about this, how they killed 4 scientists between 2010 and 2012. They sabotaged the Natanz nuclear facility with the Stuxnet computer virus. They went, there was a joint project between Mossad and CIA. And then they went and they killed Mohsen Fakhrizadeh at the end of 2020, last year. They ambushed him. They went and they also sabotaged the Natanz nuclear facility this year, a few months ago, and also last year in the summer. So yes, there is definitely a war of sabotage and a war of tankers going on. Absolutely, absolutely. And they have also set some ships on fire last summer, if you recall. We covered that too. However, it is safe to acknowledge that Israel is playing with fire since it is operating outside its comfort zone and competing in Iran's playground. Indeed, they're in Iran's backyard. Furthermore, Israel is clearly facing a severe challenge to its authority and reputation in the Middle East. The question is how long it can sustain this tit-for-tat game that it has itself initiated. Iran officially denied its involvement in the attack, so this is about the vessel, the Mercer Street. However, analysts in the region believe that Israel is under shock because it is possible that Iran has responded in the Sea of Oman against an Israeli attack in Syria, introducing a new rules of engagement and choosing the theater directly and not through its allies or in the same operational theater in the Levant. This Iranian choice, claim analysts, indicates that Tehran has deliberately avoided any further implication of the Syrian government, clearly unwilling to start an open war against Israel. It is also saying that Iran will no longer be contained by the Syrian frame for retaliation or containment and will choose where to hit back at Israel for its continuous attacks on Iranian targets in the Levant. So just to give you an idea geographically what we're talking about, this is over here where this happened, where the Mercer Street was hit. Down here in the Sea of Oman. This is well outside of Syria. Huh? This is, I'm trying to get a zoomed out picture for you over here, right? This is very far from Syria and Iraq. So let me just, yeah, I mean, you get the picture, right? I don't need to open Google Maps for you. This is not anywhere near Syria, just to underscore Elijah's point. And this is very important to note because usually what happens is, Joe Biden or the Israelis, like we said, they'll bomb Iraq or Syria, and then they say, oh, we're hitting Iranian-backed targets and so forth. There's never been anything like this far out. This is very interesting indeed. And I absolutely think that they took the Israelis by shock because this is why they're cooking up a stink. Because you did have Israeli ships being hit before in the last couple of months. Again, this is like an entire shadow war in of itself. Well, let's call it a battle, part of the larger war going on. But you didn't hear that much of a stink. They're trying to cook one up now. And they're all saying, the Americans, the British saying, oh, Iran is going to receive a response, whatever the hell that means, right? They're bullies. Again, they threaten people. And I do think it caught them off guard. I wholeheartedly agree with Elijah on everything. This is undoubtedly what's happening. And you need to understand that Elijah points out here, according to a high-ranking official in the axis of resistance, so again, that could be Iran, could be Syria, Iran is aware that 90% of Israel's goods pass through the sea, which falls into Iran's operational theater and within a comfortable range of its military reach. Israel is indisputably an intelligent enemy. However, the idea to expand its operational theater within Iran's controlled area is arrogant, provocative, and counterproductive. Israel is offering Iran unlimited targets in the sea to select from when it initiates this game, which will undoubtedly break its teeth. Israel has much more to lose if it decides to respond to the attack, because the retaliation from the Iranian side will not take very long. The last response was significant and balanced, imposing deterrence and a new rule of engagement that still causes confusion and pain to Israel. And again, this is very important because the Iranians are playing tit for tat. I think this is very important to underscore. Whatever you want to say, the Iranians respond in a measured fashion, in a measured way, in a proportionate way, and defensively. I mean, every single situation, like let's look at, for example, the Ain al-Assad base, this American base in Iraq, which was hit after General Soleimani was assassinated, was murdered by Trump, and Abu Mahdi. Obviously, this doesn't make up for it, not even close, but nonetheless, they did it purposely in a way not to kill anyone, but to send a message. And, I always respect the Iranians. They have extraordinary patience. I don't know how they do it. But that is one example. And who initiated this action? The Americans. Trump came and murdered Abu Mahdi Mohandes and General Soleimani. The Iranians didn't just decide to fire a barrage of rockets for no reason. It was a response, and a proportionate one. Although it doesn't really come close to the loss that they took, right? And they said this is not all. And another example with the tankers, you would have Iranian ships being hit, Israeli ships being hit. Yes? Then after what happened when Biden bombed Syria a few weeks ago, he bombed the Iraq-Syria border, right? Again, for the second time. Within the next days, actually within 24 hours, we covered this, within a 24-hour period, you had the Ain al-Assad base, the same one, attacked. The Grayzone was attacked. You had an illegal base in the Omar oil fields in Syria, which was attacked. and a fourth one, Erbil, the Erbil airport, Erbil. So 4 in 24 hours. And again, it's a measured response. No casualties, but sending a message, tit for tat. And this is the same thing. So, you know, it's entirely hypocritical. It's completely nonsensical when you have these people like Rob or Blinken coming around and acting like Iran is some aggressor. No. Iran is extraordinarily patient. I mean, I don't even understand it. I don't know how they do it. And they're certainly not the aggressor here. The Israelis are hitting Iranian ships sending aid. Aid. This is a war crime. The sanctions themselves are illegal. And so, you know, but even then, Iran is trying to help, and they come and attack ships that are meant for civilians. What is that? They're not even commercial ships or military ships. They're for civilians. They're sending humanitarian aid. They're sending supplies to Syrians who are under brutal sanctions. And they attack them. And do you ever hear that come out of Blinken's mouth? You'll never... Go and read the articles about what just happened in the Sea of Oman to this Israeli-owned ship. Very few of them are going to mention that dozens of Iranian ships were hit by Israel in the last few months. Very few. Just to read you the end of Elijah's brilliant article, he says, Israel has opened Pandora's box, and hiding under the United States skirt will not protect Israeli-owned ships if the attacks in Syria continue. Iran is carrying out a campaign between wars on Israel, which contains limited choices. Any escalation will endanger Israeli navigation, and a lack of response means Israel has decided to bite on its wounds under the world's watchful eyes. The Iranian deterrence has been imposed either way. The most worrying and crucial part for Israel to consider is whether Iran invokes a rule of engagement every time Israel bombs targets in Syria, or only when targeting an objective belonging to the axis of resistance. The next moves will answer this question. Neither answer is good news for Israel, which has set in motion a new chain of events which it will suffer from. And I think this is a very important thing to highlight as well about the commercial activity. Do you know what happened afterwards, after this ship was hit? A U.S. aircraft carrier escorted it. A fucking aircraft carrier. You know they only have 10 of them? Well, I mean, only. That's an obscene amount. They have, I mean, that's more than some countries combined, right? I forget how many Britain has at the moment. I think they're renewing, they're building a new class. But in any case, you know, countries like France maybe have 1 or 2. The United States has 10 aircraft carriers. And they sent one of them, because as you know, they have an entire fleet in the Persian Gulf. You can guess why. And they, to accompany this ship, right? So, again, of course, that's what the U.S. military is for. That's what the U.S. taxpayer money is for, protecting Israeli businesses and politics and corporations in general, not just Israeli ones, American ones too. But no, seriously, like, you have to understand something. This shipping lane over here is very important. It's not just Israeli goods which pass through it. You have all sorts of multinationals. You have all sorts of countries, Britain, the United States, who have oil coming through from their allies and also other goods. And of course, it's right on Iran's doorstep, but Iran is not posing a threat to them. Iran is saying, if you fuck with us, then we might respond to the thing that will hurt you, right? But Iran is not going out of its way to hurt anything regarding their commercial activity. They just want to be left the fuck alone. That's the thing here. And the United States is not respecting their territory. They violated it with drones, with, you know, helping Israel commit nuclear terrorism. You name it. You name it. And, you know, it speaks volumes, I think, just in general, not just this incident, but the fact that you have the U.S. military and the British as well. Remember that it's not just the Americans, it's the British as well, who have ships, military ships, patrolling this area, all for the sake of protecting their commercial interests, right? And of course, harassing Iran and other people in the region. You know, it just goes to show you what the objectives are. It tells you everything you need to know. They're on the other side of the world, just sending, you know, warships. Why is that? Why is that? You answer the question. Think on it a bit. But this is definitely opening a Pandora's box, and it's just so hypocritical that they talk about, oh, look, Iran did this, but let's not talk about Israel, you know, hitting dozens of ships, among other things. And they do this with the nuclear issue as well. They'll tell you, oh, look, Iran is building nuclear weapons, which is complete horseshit. And then They don't tell you that, oh, look, Israel is actually sabotaging their nuclear program. They're committing acts of terrorism in the country, assassinating scientists. What? Who's the aggressor here? Again, they always have to frame Iran and Syria and so on as aggressors, and the Israelis are the victims, right? With their $3 billion in military aid every year. The Americans are the victims. The British are the victims. Oh, poor them, right? Not what the fuck is the United States and the United Kingdom doing on Iran's doorstep with warships. No, let's not ask that question, because the jig's up. Because then the jig's up. God, they're so vile. It's really one thing to have such a, predatory and violent foreign policy, but then it's also another thing to have such a foul, vile, despicable media apparatus that constantly covers for them and just, whitewashes their crimes and tries to portray these colonial powers as victims. Go fuck yourself. Seriously. Anyway, I'm glad you guys are all back in the game. We got 261 watching. I think we were nearing 500, but it's okay. 261 beautiful friends over here. So just please make sure you've hit the like button. As you can see, something knocked the stream out. So, we got to rebuild the hype. In any case, I want to, if you have any questions, I'll definitely read them. We got a tip over here. This is from Reed. Says, glad you're almost back to the original number of viewers after getting shut down. Testament to the quality of your reporting and passion. Thank you so much. Says, j'espère que tout se passe bien, mec. Merci pour ton travail. Et merci à toi. Hein. Merci beaucoup. Ça fait plaisir d'entendre ça et de voir que vous êtes tous là. Vraiment, merci beaucoup. Ça fait plaisir. You guys rock. Sérieux. And I'm also glad to see the number back up. It's really good. It's really good. So if you guys have any questions or comments, shoot, and I'll read them. I'm just checking over here if you sent anything. Again, we're still not done. Remember, we used to do like the 7-hour streams. Who knows how long we go? But I don't know. Okay, so I want to talk about a very, very important topic, but I just need a bathroom break real quick. So just give me a second, and I'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We will be right here. Don't go nowhere. I'm watching. All right. We're back. Thank you guys so much for your patience. And it's kind of funny because I had some comment saying something like, oh, why don't you cover UK politics? Like, what? You just do that every day. But this next one is about that. And it's very important because it's also connected to Assange. And maybe some of you already know what I'm going to talk about. Let's see in the comments. All right, I'm just getting it set up. All right, man, let's go. Let's go. So this is kind of heartbreaking. It's kind of heartbreaking. Okay. So Craig Murray. Craig Murray is the former British ambassador to Uzbekistan, and he's just been jailed. He's been sentenced to 8 months in prison in Scotland. And this is such an unreal story. It's a scandalous, calling it a miscarriage of justice is, again, it's an understatement. This is Craig. So I want to tell you a little bit about him and his case. It's connected to Assange. It's very important, right? Like, we have to go through this because this is, again, an attack on whistleblowers and journalists. It's absolutely insane what they're doing to him. Really insane. So, you know, Craig, like I said, he was ambassador, the British ambassador to Uzbekistan, right? And he became a whistleblower as well. He became a whistleblower because he exposed torture by the British and the Americans in Uzbekistan. This is an article from the BBC. This is back in 2004, right? And they attacked him for this relentlessly, right? They tried to smear him after he did this. They tried to accuse him of, you know, they said things like, I don't know, things like, you know, about prostitutes and something. I don't want to go into the whole story, but, you know, they tried to attack his reputation and character assassinate him because of that. You know what I mean? So they were saying things like, you know, he's a sexual predator and all this nonsense. It's not true. It's completely nonsense because they had a Foreign Office investigation, you know, the FCO, the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. They investigated and cleared him of it, but it doesn't matter because in the media and you know, elsewhere, the damage is already done. They character assassinated him. So anyway, after that, he becomes a blogger, right? And just before I continue, when he was exposing this torture, we're talking about, you know, MI6, CIA, and the authorities in Uzbekistan all working together, obtaining evidence under torture. So it goes very deep, and he blew the whistle on that. He did the right thing. And they tried to get rid of him. They character assassinated him. And after that, he becomes a blogger, right? He becomes a blogger, and he's a strong supporter of Scottish independence, and he joins the Scottish National Party, the SNP, afterwards in 2011. He's also a friend of Assange, right? So he's very involved with Assange, and actually, you can see he's mentioned here regarding the DNC leaks. So you guys remember the famed DNC leaks, which Hillary Clinton went ballistic over, and they say, oh my God, it cost her the election. Like, no, not that she's a terrible person and has terrible policies, and she's so bad that she actually helped push Trump. Remember the Pied Piper strategy? So regarding the DNC leaks, let me tell you how Craig is involved, right? So this is an article from The Guardian, okay? And this is when they were saying, oh, it's Russiagate. This is the beginning of Russiagate, okay? Now, Craig Murray, I'm just reading here. It says, Craig Murray, the former UK ambassador to Uzbekistan, who is a close associate of Julian Assange, called the CIA claims bullshit, adding that they are absolutely making it up. Craig Murray said, I know who leaked them. I've met the person who leaked them, and they are certainly not Russian, and it's an insider. It's a leak, not a hack. The two are different things. That's extraordinary, right? Because, you know, one of the huge things about Assange, one of the big smears that they try to pull all the time is like, oh, he's working with the Russians. No, it's complete nonsense. We all know, Assange himself has said this on television, that the source is not Russian and it's not a state actor, right? It's nothing to do with Russia. So I think Craig and Assange, they're probably the only people who know the source, if I'm not mistaken. Craig definitely, at least, in any case. But there you go. And of course, Assange. I don't know if anyone else does. But you can see his relationship is very close. He's very deeply involved with WikiLeaks. And the in order to understand why Craig went to jail now, you have to understand another court case. So he was basically covering this trial of Alex Salmond. Alex Salmond used to be the First Minister of Scotland, right? And this trial took place in 2020, last year. So there were 14 counts that Alex Salmond was charged with by 9 women. And, you know, he was accused of sexual harassment, and one of them was an accusation of rape. And he was cleared on all the charges. You know, so it's not just that he was cleared. There's tons of foul play in this case. And Craig is one of the only people, he's actually the only person, as far as I know, who covered the defense's case in detail. Because everyone else was covering it from the prosecution's point of view, right? Like the BBC, the Scotsman, you know, all these mainstream outlets, they were basically covering it from the prosecution's point of view, which is what they do with Assange as well. But Craig Murray, on his blog, he detailed the defense's case, in very great detail. So, you know, let's go through what happened. Because they're charging him over his coverage. So you have to understand what happened, right? Now, just to give you an idea of the foul play that took place with Alex Salmond, you had 22 people in the police, right? In Scotland, and they tried to get women to file charges against him. So they I think for a year they went and they started interviewing like 400 women, and not a single one volunteered or you know, decided to file charges against him or accuse him of sexual harassment. The police somehow found out that there was a woman that he had kissed. They said that he kissed her some years ago, and they asked her, "Do you want to file charges against Salmond for sexual harassment?" And she said, "No, because he kissed me on the cheek like a friend. I don't want to file charges against him." So did you see it's very politically motivated when you have the police trying to, like, you know, almost fabricate the case. And these are things that Craig Murray talked about. Craig Murray, I said, I'm going to quote this to you. Okay, so Murray claims that Salmond was actually the victim of a high-level plot by senior politicians to discredit him and prevent his return to the forefront of Scottish politics. And for those of you who don't know, Sturgeon, she took over after him. And there's a problem in the SNP, in the Scottish National Party. There's a split, there's a divide, and it's going on for some time now, which is how to go about independence. You have people who say that, you know, one wing of the party wants independence, but they're just paying lip service. It's just all talk. And Salmond, Alex Salmond, he's someone who was very, very serious about independence. He actually wanted to, you know, take on Westminster and get it done. And, you know, they took him out for that. That's what this is about. And Craig made this point very clear, that they stitched him up, they framed him with this thing. And again, it's not even about if it's real or not. It's they just have to say it, and the damage is done. Because 2/3 of the jury were women. The entire case was thrown out. He wasn't found guilty of anything, but it was enough to get him out of politics, to get him out of the SNP. You understand? So Craig Murray talked about this. And then I just want to give you another example of the foul play in the case. There was something that happened at Edinburgh Airport where Alex Salmond allegedly made some, like, sexual comment to this woman. And you have to remember that the women in the case, we don't know their names. And you'll see why this is very important in a second. They're named Woman A, Woman B, Woman C, etc. And I was at Craig's court thing in a second, I'll tell you. But in any case, Alex Salmond was at Edinburgh Airport, and he told this woman that she has killer heels. And this was all over the media, and it turns out she had set off the alarm, you know, the metal detector. When you walk through the airport, the shoes, if they have metal, they can set off the alarm. And he made a joke that they're killer heels. And they took this joke out of context. And said that it was a sexual comment, like he's, you know, like objectifying her or something. It's complete bullshit, right? So that's another example of this, where they're trying to stitch him up. there's another thing where the rape accusation, where he went to a dinner party with a woman, and he allegedly raped her afterwards, after the party. And it turns out she never attended the party. She was never there. And how do we know this? We know this because of the other witnesses. For example, a woman who knew this accuser well, she actually received a phone call. She was asked to go instead. And the accuser actually had the accuser, she had something like a cast or something on her arm. And, you know, the other people who were at this dinner party never saw someone with a cast on their arm. You know, it's something you would remember. So she was never there. And it just shows you like how they just made the entire thing up. The rape charges, all of it. And Craig Murray exposed this. He exposed this in his blog, in his reporting. Okay? And, you know, they by the way, they don't say that he raped her. They say he tried to rape her, right? So it's very, we don't know the identity of the woman. And they say that Alex Salmond allegedly wanted to rape this woman, but she never attended this dinner party. Okay? So you have very big discrepancies. And Craig Murray, he reported on all this. And then what happens? They got him thrown out for it. So they said, we don't want you to cover this anymore. They you know, the judge kicked him out. And they said that we're going to charge you. And what did they charge him with? They charged him with contempt of court. So the main thing was jigsaw identification. I think another one was influencing the jury. And there were 3 counts of this. Yes? And Craig was convicted. They convicted him on jigsaw identification. So what is that? It's basically this notion that he allegedly revealed the identities of these women, right? Because as I said, they're anonymous. In court, they're referred to as woman A, woman B, woman C. And Craig, they accuse him of giving clues in his reporting that would allow someone to, you know, piece together, like a jigsaw puzzle, the identity of the women. And it's complete nonsense. And I'll show you why. Because he did no such thing. For example, there was the Google searches thing. It was proven that he actually, Craig Murray, he Googled certain things to make sure that no results would turn up before he published, so that he could protect the identities of the women. He actually, you know, he specifically, purposely went through the effort of protecting their identities. That's one thing. And they say over here, I'm just trying to pull this up for you. This is from Craig on his Twitter, right? Craig Murray. He says that the polling was conducted by panel base as an extra question in one of their standard Scottish opinion polls. I paid for the question, but there was no mechanism by which I could affect the results. Okay? It showed Danny Garavelli as by far the biggest source of identification. So he basically, he got a poll done, and one of the questions is, how did you discover or deduce the identity of the accuser or accusers? And the answers were not him, but, you know, mainstream outlets like the BBC. That's what the people said in the polls. You see, via newspapers, newspaper websites, or newspaper social media. And most people said that they don't know. So they answered no on this question before. They said, do you believe that you personally know the identities of any of the accusers? 92% said no. And you can see all the other outlets over here. They asked people to name journalists or specific newspapers or broadcasters which contributed to that. And you can see the Sun, Scotland, on Sunday, Guardian, Daily Beast. These are all mainstream outlets, nothing to do with Craig. So if you're going to charge someone for jigsaw identification, why don't you charge them as well? They didn't. They went after Craig specifically, right? That's why they went after him. And there's another thing over here that you need to understand, which is very, very shocking. The judge didn't even disprove his sworn testimony. Craig Murray in court, he said, he swore under oath, right, that he did not intend to reveal their identities, okay, and that he did not, intend to cause any harm and so forth. And they never disproved that in court. So Do you understand how bad this is? The judge, Lady Dorian, she essentially just, decided after reading his blog posts or his reporting that he was guilty of jigsaw identification, but she couldn't actually prove that, he led a campaign to reveal their identities. This is so absurd. This is so obviously political and trying to stitch him up. It's really messed up. It's really messed up. There's so many things wrong with this case. And just a second, I'm trying to pull up as many documents as I can, right? Again, if you're going to charge Craig Murray with this, why wouldn't you charge the BBC? As you can see from this poll, the mainstream outlets did far more to reveal the identities of the accusers, or at least give information. Because you understand, the charge is that he would give some clue, let's say her hair was blonde or something like that, whatever. And then because he wrote that, someone with other knowledge in the public domain, so they went and read something in the BBC, could piece together those two pieces of information like a jigsaw puzzle and then deduce her identity. But he never did that. And I mean, for God's sake, do you know this guy has health problems? Like they have something mandatory that they have to do. It's called a social work report for court. And in the social work report, they said that Craig Murray is unfit for community service, never mind a custodial sentence. So basically, it's not good for him to go to jail. And the last time, that he was, the British political establishment was going after him because of the whistleblowing thing, he had some problems with his heart. He almost died. So they know damn well that sending him to jail is bad for his health. He can't even do community service. That's what the social work says, the official one, the social work report. So despite the health problems, they sent him to jail. Despite the fact that the mainstream media has done more to potentially, carry out jigsaw identification than him, they still sent him to jail. And they let off the mainstream media. They let them off the hook. Despite the fact that he purposely took steps, like the Google search thing, he swore that he never did anything to try and compromise our identities. They still accused him of that and sent him to jail for it. I mean, this is so political. And, I want to say something else also. Craig Murray, if he wanted to reveal their identities, I mean, you don't think he could have done that without having it traced back to him? Like I said, he knows, people in the activist world. He knows people in, you name it. He's very well connected. This is my point. He's well connected. He's in no shortage of friends. If he wanted to release the identities, he could have done that easily online, anonymously, without having it traced back to him. He could have done it outside of Scottish jurisdiction. He could have done it if he wanted to. He never did that. And who gets to decide what jigsaw identification is? If something an independent blogger or journalist posts counts as jigsaw identification, but then the mainstream media does even worse, and that doesn't count as jigsaw identification. What is that? What kind of message is that sending? The message here is that they're going to punish whistleblowers, independent journalists, people who expose their wrongdoing and foul play, and they're going to give mainstream media a pass, as they always do. It's no different from anywhere else, and this is very, very bad. And another thing I want to point out here that Craig underlined, I want to point out something else here. He posted this on Twitter. This is so fucking outrageous. Just wait till I read this to you. Take a look. This is so outrageous. Look at what he said. This is on May 11th this year, okay? They took away his passport. Look what Craig said. Actually, what I found most shocking about that was the peculiar determination of the judges to make sure that during the 3 weeks we have to lodge the appeal, I am not allowed to go to Spain to testify in the criminal prosecution for the CIA spying on Assange's legal team. Oh, how stinky. That is so goddamn fishy. So you guys know that UC Global is a Spanish firm, and this company was contracted to do security at the Ecuadorian embassy in London. The CIA got UC Global to spy on Julian Assange while he was living in the embassy, while he had political asylum, right? Craig Murray visited Assange a lot. Stefania Morizzi, right? who's been on the show, great friend. She's also visited Assange a lot. Glenn Greenwald. They spied on them. They even spied on Assange's conversations with his lawyers in the bathroom. They had a microphone under the fire extinguisher. They bugged the entire place. They spied on Assange. They even tried to steal his kid's diaper. They were discussing, I heard in court in the Old Bailey, like these former employees of UC Global, they were testifying anonymously on behalf of Assange's defense. And they were saying how they even discussed a plot to kidnap and poison Assange, to potentially kidnap and poison him. I mean, this is insane. That's a fucking conspiracy to commit murder. I mean, or kidnapping at best, whatever that means. But you get my point here. Like, there was something extremely foul afoot. And Craig Murray is one of the people who was spying on, just because they spied on everyone going in the embassy. And just when he's supposed to go to Spain to testify against this company, because they're trying... David Morales is the head of UC Global, and he's being tried in Spain. And just when Craig Murray is supposed to go testify as witness, he can't travel anymore. God, that is so stinky. I mean, you want to tell me that's just a coincidence? Use your fucking brain. God, that is no. I don't buy that for a second. That's not a coincidence. But I mean. This is just one out of many big problems. Just going back to this jigsaw identification thing. Craig Murray's the first person to be jailed ever for that. Can you imagine that? He's the first fucking person in the history of the UK and Scotland to be jailed for jigsaw identification. No one's ever been jailed for that. And the last people to be jailed for contempt of court, this was, I think, 70 years ago in Scotland and 50 years ago in the UK. And those cases, those people, they committed way worse offenses. They published way more information for this, and they were only fined for it. They only had to pay fines. They were not sent to jail. So why is Craig Murray being sent to jail for something where you're just fined? Why is he being sent to jail despite his health problems? Why is he being prevented from testifying in the UC Global case? The CIA spying on Assange and him. How weird, right? How weird. So I want to read you another astonishing conclusion, because you need to understand, by the way, I attended I attended Craig's court case. So this was in January, I think, right? And man, this was tough, because I was literally attending two court cases at the same time. So one in Scotland and one in England. So the one in Scotland was for Craig, and the one in England was about the Freedom of Information Act. So Stefania Morizzi, she did something incredible. She got a decision from the UK that anyone in the world can apply for a Freedom of Information Act request, including me, because, I'm a British citizen, but I'm not there, so I can't use it. But now I can, thanks to Stefania and her lawyers. So that's very important. That's a landmark decision. That means anyone, anywhere in the world can request a FOIA from the UK government. This is extremely important, because why did you do this? Because they were trying to block her, because she's Italian and she doesn't live in the UK. They're trying to block her from requesting a Freedom of Information Acts about the UK government's exchanges with various governments about Assange. So they're like, oh, hold on a second, you're not even in the UK. Let's find some legal loophole to block her from even making the request. And she got it overturned. She a huge victory. So that was happening at the same time as Craig Murray's thing. And dude, I mean, I'm actually scared. Like, how much am I allowed to report? Am I also going to go to jail for contempt of court because I talked about Craig's case? I'm seriously asking what's going to happen if I say like something too mean now. I mean, the whole thing's it's a farce. It's really a farce. Why are they like wasting so many resources and effort to jail a man who has health problems, who committed no crime? It's a political witch hunt. It's a goddamn kangaroo court. That's what it is. They couldn't even prove that he lied in his sworn testimony. They couldn't even prove him wrong. They just decided you're going to jail. Un-goddamn believable. And you know, the final nail in the coffin, even if you want to come here and you want to tell me, you know what, Craig Murray, he didn't do anything, like there's no vendetta against Craig Murray, he's genuinely guilty, whatever that means. Even if you want to argue this nonsense, the next thing that I'm about to say to you should scare you very much. This is from the judge, Lady Dorian, in her ruling. What does she say? She says, the applicant, meaning Craig Murray, describes himself as a, quote, journalist in new media. Whatever that may involve, it is relevant to distinguish his position from that of the mainstream press, which is regulated and subject to codes of practice and ethics in a way in which those writing as the applicant does are not. To the extent that the submissions for the applicant make comparisons with other press contempts and the role of mainstream journalists, this is a factor which should be recognized. Do you know what she's doing? She's saying that independent bloggers, independent journalists should be punished harder and held to a different standard from mainstream journalists. That's what she just said and what she just did. That's what she just did, because as I told you, other outlets like the BBC, you saw the poll. There are dozens of outlets. They all reported about this Alex Salmond case, and they disclosed even more damning, information for this jigsaw identification, and they weren't punished. And she's saying it like, yeah, I'm going to hold you to a different standard because you're not a mainstream journalist. What? Jesus Christ. I mean, do you see what they're doing here? Do you see what they're doing here? Jailing Craig Murray, who's, again, he's a whistleblower, right? About the torture. He's reporting about Alex Salmond's case. He reported about Assange's case. I don't know if I mentioned that. I think many of you may already know. He was also, I was in court with him. If you look at, do you remember the speech that I gave outside the Old Bailey? That's him behind me. He gives fire speeches. That's Craig. So he also reported, on the court case, and the NUJ tried to screw him. They wouldn't give him a press card, so he had to go in the public gallery with me. You see how they try to screw journalists in every way? They try to put roadblocks so you can't actually do your job. So he reported very extensively on the Assange thing. I mean, he's also involved with WikiLeaks for a long time, very knowledgeable. And she's saying, yeah, you know what? Mainstream media, they're more they're better disciplined or self-regulating or whatever the fuck that means. So, I mean, this is obviously such a, not only wrong, but just, and immoral, but just factually incorrect. I mean, the mainstream media is the most vile, the most vile apparatus in existence. But you can see how this ruling is dangerous because they denied his high court appeal as well. Let me rephrase that. Craig Murray, after he was sentenced, he tried to appeal this at the Supreme Court, right? Hold on, let me pull this up for you so you can see it over here. So he tried to appeal it to the Supreme Court, okay? They didn't decline his case. They even this is so crazy. They wouldn't even let him make the case to appeal. Do you understand? They wouldn't even hear him out. They're like, no, there's no appeal. Go to jail. Because sometimes you have preliminary hearings. They decide whether they're going to let you appeal at the High Court or the Supreme Court, right? They wouldn't even do that. They said, no, go to jail. And so yesterday, at St. Leonard's police station, he surrendered himself. I'm going to play you the video. You had tons of people who showed up, Shout out to everyone and also to Team Assange.
For auld lang syne, my dear, for auld lang syne, we'll take a cup of kindness yet for all.
I mean, this is really sad. 8 months in jail. Even 1 month, 1 day in jail. This is absurd. It's so obviously political and a vendetta, a real vendetta. I mean, you can take your pick. I don't know. Maybe they're punishing him for the whistleblowing, although they tried to character assassinate him already for that. But you know how vindictive they are. So not just the whistleblowing on the torture, but maybe also his work with Assange, his reporting on Assange, the reporting on Salman, obviously. Who knows? It's all of these things, maybe, right? But this is very dangerous. It's very evil. It's very unfair for Craig. And it's also, again, setting a dangerous precedent for the media. Like, this is so insane. Like, almost every week we're having some new kind of affront on journalists, right? I mean, the same week as Craig, Daniel Hale was jailed, right? We covered that. He's a whistleblower. He talked about the drone program. But also recently, they're trying to reform the Official Secrets Act, right? They're telling journalists in the UK, if you publish something that's classified, it's an unauthorized disclosure, you're worse than an enemy spy, because more people will find out about this classified information than if a spy had stolen it. What kind of logic is that? Unbelievable, right? So they're trying to reform the OSA. They just jailed Craig Murray, and they're saying that mainstream journalists are better than independent ones. Like they should be held to a less strict standard for some reason for the same crime. I thought the crime is a crime. Whether, actually, if it's a mainstream journalist, shouldn't it be worse since they have more reach? Apparently not. It's the opposite. If you're an independent blogger, you're apparently more dangerous when committing jigsaw identification, which again he did not do. And the whole thing with Assange, never mind that. That's also something extraordinary. They just decided recently to grant the appeal, let the appeal go ahead. It's so many things happening at once. It's really worrying. It's really worrying, man. And Craig is a very nice gentleman. I don't know him too well, but we did speak in London, and after the Assange thing, we spoke briefly, and yeah, he should not be in a jail cell. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. If you're telling journalists they can't cover court cases because, especially independent ones, because they're going to be held to a different standard, and they won't even be able to have an appeal, because when the High Court says, the Supreme Court is not even letting Craig Murray appeal, that means they're outright agreeing with Lady Dorian's decision and reaffirming that, yeah, fuck you if you're an independent journalist. You can't come and talk about anything happening in a court case, a kangaroo court that we've set up, or we're going to jail you. And mainstream media journalists can get away with it. That's the message they're sending. But he should not be in jail. This is obscene. And it's very obviously a vendetta. Very obviously a vendetta. So now you have both Julian Assange and Craig Murray, who are in Britain, in the UK, in jails, political prisoners. This is shameful. This is shameful. This is very shameful. And regrettable. I would expect better from the United Kingdom, which claims to be a democracy. I expect better. This is not democratic. This is not fair. This is unfair. This is unjust. This is not acceptable in any way at all. I want to read you also something from his wife. I want to read you just a second, I'm pulling it up. So, Craig Murray, again, his blog, he that's where he posts all his brilliant reporting, and he said that this was, in typical Craig fashion. What does he say? He says, "This blog will be going dark for a few months. The Queen kindly paid for my dinners for over 20 years while I was a British diplomat and ambassador, and now she's going to be paying for my dinners again. That is very, very kind. I thought she had forgotten me." I'll read you also a statement from his wife. It says, "Today is the most heartbreaking day. My husband, whose health has been found to not be suitable for prison, must hand himself in for detention within hours following the UK Supreme Court's decision not to hear his appeal. We were extremely hopeful that the Supreme Court would hear his case and had no doubt that this particular case should have been heard, given how important and relevant it is in the context of freedom of speech in the UK. Instead, the Supreme Court declined to hear it." Yet again, my heart is deeply saddened to find that the UK, once a country which placed great importance on human rights issues, has failed to listen to my husband's case. Additionally, the Scottish court outright dismissed Craig's poor health, having been made aware through the mandatory social work report and doctors' reports that his well-being would be at risk if forced to go to jail. At first, I tried to come to terms of him being jailed in the hope he would be granted dignified conditions in jail, but I'm saddened and shocked to learn he could be placed among criminals with no ability to bring books or enable him to write, with no entertainment allowed. He's being treated like a criminal. This is not a just punishment. This is a deliberate attempt to break the spirit of anyone brave enough to make use of free speech. Given a pen and paper, what do? You write in your own voice, speaking the truth. Having been with Craig for 2 decades, he has always spent his time and energy highlighting injustices and standing up for what is right, carefully, considerately, and consistently. I was brought up during Soviet times and post-independence in my own country, Uzbekistan. I have witnessed and personally experienced myself what the price of freedom of speech truly is. Opponents were disappeared, or it was claimed they had taken their own life or been locked away in asylums. I am filled with fear this pattern is now repeating itself in the UK. It is appalling to see Craig is going through the same treatment in the so-called human rights respecting country, United Kingdom. This is an attack on truth tellers. His writings are those of a highly qualified journalist, human rights activist, former rector of Dundee University, and former British ambassador. To us, his family, this situation is devastating. I am now left with my 5-month-old baby, yet to find a good way to explain Craig's jail sentence to his confused and anxious 12-year-old son. Of any readers concerned with the loss of freedom of speech and equality before the law, I ask that you show active and outspoken solidarity with my partner. And we do. Indeed, we do. So, I hope we can at least write to Craig. I don't know if there's anything like that yet, but he shouldn't be in there, man. This is, again, a political witch hunt. And, yeah, I have nothing more to add to this statement. Really. It's all there. It's all there. So, yeah. It's very heartbreaking. They're going after everyone, you know? So, I'm just going to read your comments if you'll give me a second. I got there's a tip over here from Mahad. Says, my representative in Congress is Paul Tonko, and he voted to give Israel $3.3 billion while his constituents in Albany are homeless. Some of the highest in the whole country. And I'm disgusted beyond belief, but people are too stupid to vote for someone better. Well, like I said, man, that's that's a constant in U.S. politics, support for Israel. That's that's a constant, unfortunately. Reeve Barker says, is the movie about Catherine Gun leak, Official Secrets, accurate? Why did they allow that story to be told? Just because it had been so long? That's interesting you ask about Catherine Gun. She's very cool. You know, she blew the whistle on how the United Kingdom knew that the war in Iraq was illegal and that they were working, conspiring with the United States to just get it done. And yes, as you said, this movie, Official Secrets, it's about her. And I think Keira Knightley plays her, right? So they tried using the Official Secrets Act against her. And then it's interesting because I think, if I recall correctly, they dropped the prosecution because if they had gone ahead, they would have had to admit that they knew the war in Iraq was illegal. So to avoid embarrassment and revealing this in trial, they were just like, okay, let's just drop the charges. God, it's like they're so corrupt, honestly. But I don't know how accurate the movie is. I'll have to ask Catherine. I'll make sure to ask her. Okay? I'll remember Reeve. Don't worry. So I'm also interested to know how accurate it is. Give me a second. Just looking in the super chats thingy because we lost the stream. You know, the stream got cut off, so the super chats are all over the place, and I have to go open the other one to get them here. This one is from Revolutionary Drew. It says America are sounding Iran, China, and Russia. Check out the new Atlas channel. He covers a lot about NED funding fake protesters and terrorists. We also got one from Mass Casualty. Says another 2 for you if you do the D-bag Brit accent. Do you mean the yes, boy? It's not a douchebag accent. It's just Queen's English. Yes. Thank you, Mass Casualty. A rather exemplary service in the name of independent media. Yes, boy. Hendrik says, glad you're... Oh, yeah, I already read your one. I'm also very happy we're back to the original number. C'est bien, c'est bien. Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. So if you guys have any questions, let them rip. And I'm very grateful for all of your help. Thank you, boy, for supporting independent media. Yes, the Crown thanks you very much. We're rather grateful. Yes, indeed. So I'm going to plug the show. I haven't plugged the show, man. I haven't plugged it. Let's plug. No, seriously though, we got a Patreon. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show on Patreon. It's a monthly thing, $2, $3, whatever. It doesn't matter. I'm grateful for anything, and you can put in any amount. And you support independent media, anti-imperialist media. This is the spot. Where else are you going to get all this foreign policy? You know you're not going to get it anywhere else, man. This is the spot. So I'm so grateful for all your support. The link is patreon.com/RichardMedhurst. Thank you so much. And if you want, you can also support on PayPal or CashApp, whatever is good for you. There's a QR code up on the screen. You can just scan it, and then it will be fine. So if you have any questions, shoot, and I'll try to answer them as best as I can, as fast as I can. And we haven't had a crab dance, right? Maybe you know or you don't know, but people who join on Patreon or donate on the GoFundMe, I play a crab dance for them, which is like our little ritual. Right? So it's a running gag or whatever they call it. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what else to say, man. The merch thingy, there's like the promo code, I think. Hold on, let me pull it up. I'm getting so confused with this. This is like the worst plug. Hold on. We're going to get it. I'm going to get it for you, man. Take a look. Yes, boy. Behold the wonder of Uncle Joe's Rainbow Coalition death card. Yes. Wonderful, that boy. Splendid. Jolly good show. So this is the Rainbow Coalition death card thingy. And the code is back to school. All caps, all together. That's the promo code. I'm sorry I ballsed that up earlier. That's store.richardmedhurst.com. And this is very cool merch. I designed it with Mona. So yeah, it's cool. Anyway, I have the long sleeve thingy. One of you bought a mug. That's pretty cool. Anyway, man, is there anything else I forgot? The Substack? You should join the Substack. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just a mailing list. And I went live earlier and I posted the link on Substack. Did you guys get a notification? It should go to your email. So, and Telegram as well. All over the place. The links are all in the, the thing, man. Come on. I'm too tired. I'm all tapped out. As Joe Biden says, go, you know the thing. You know the thing. So thank you all. This has been a long stream. How long have we been streaming? 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours? I don't know. We used to do 7-hour ones. I think that's the record. But we might spontaneously do it again. Who knows? You don't know. Watch out. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for supporting anti-imperialist independent journalism. I'm very grateful. You guys rock. All of the links are below. I'm not going to say any more. And yeah. Mass Casualty says, that's the one. Thank you, sir. You're most welcome, my boy. And Pookie says, this is a wake-up call. Freedom is an illusion. I assume you're talking about the freedom of press. It appears to be. At this rate, it definitely is. At this rate, definitely is. Although, I just want to add one thing. When people say like, well, this sets a dangerous precedent and so on and so on. I mean, of course, I agree with their sentiment, but yeah, it's always been like this. I mean, of course, they malign and they shit on independent journalists and, journalists in general who say things the government doesn't like. It's always been like that. It's not new. It's not like, until yesterday morning, the UK was like a bastion of free press or something. You know what I mean? But yes, I get the sentiment. I agree with it. I understand. I get it. No worries. Okay, so yeah, that's about it, man. Thank you so much for your support. Very grateful. Take care. And I'm kind of disappointed we didn't have a single crab dance. That kind of blows, but it's okay, man. It doesn't matter. We'll crab it up another time. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Ma'asalame. Peace out. Free Assange, free Craig Murray. Yes, boy. Jolly good show.